changing the sound of your library. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull up an old favorite. I'm gonna pull up Ravenscroft, and I'm gonna pull up. Let me get rid of the. So there's Ravenscroft right there, which is a great product, and I'm gonna take out the. So there's Ravenscroft. So you can add in a little bit of EQ and really change the character. A lot of times when you buy your piano library, you're like, well, the piano library, piano libraries have all this mini gig samples and everything, and completely blowing away your hardware keyboard. But hardware keyboards, make no mistake, the guys that make your hardware sounds are going to make those sounds sound excellent. So you're going to be album ready because you're spending your money on hardware. You don't want to buy a $4,000, $3,000 keyboard and take it home and have to do some tweaking to it. You better plug that in, and it better be sounding good right off the bat. And the hardware makers know this. With software, not so much. You got to go in and do some tweaking. You got to go in and do some adjusting. And you can plug in your hardware, get your laptop and everything, and get it all running. And you're like, well, why doesn't it sound good? Sound as good as my keyboard, as my Yamaha, as my Motif or my Korg or whatever, because they've done their tweaking to their hardware. You've got software, you've got advantage with voices and detail, but they don't mess with EQ, because most likely you're gonna buy a software synth and you're gonna take it and mess with it in the studio, and it's not going to be ready right off the bat. So if you just add in a little bit of EQ, and let's be honest. So this is the EQ right here. Just a little bit of EQ. So right at about 5,500, right about 900. Let me see. Right about it says 680 hertz. I have a 3 decibel cut right there. I have the Q at 0.7. Then right around here at 130 hertz, I have a 2 decibel raise. Basically, your basic U shape. And I have a 30 hertz, but I have some Q on there. So right at about 50 hertz down, because I'm not trying to work anyone's subwoofer. So, I'm not trying to, you're going to send your sound through the house and you don't want to rumble, especially if you have 88 keys. So right around here at 4,500 hertz, I have it, I have a 2.5 decibel. And so this is my parametric EQ. When you listen to your music on your stereo, there's not a flat EQ. Your car stereo, there's not a flat EQ curve. It's EQ'd and shaped to sound good. So when you go to the studio, you're not going to want to use this. You're going to want to take all of your sounds on a sound by sound basis and do your engineering that way. You're in your mastering house, because it's got to sound good on everything. It's got to sound good on your transistor radio. It's got to sound good on your X $1,000 Bang & Olufsen system. That's from the studio to whatever you're going to put it in. But for live, you need to shape it to sound like you're listening to it on your stereo, which you're going to make a stereo curve. So when I did this, I created an EQ curve that kind of mimics how I listen to most music in my car, how I listen to most music on my stereo system at home. And basically, now my software library sound on par with my hardware. And then on top of that, I have an exciter, which kind of raises the harmonics. Let me add in that exciter. So that actually adds some sparkle. So there, now I have. I went from this, which doesn't sound bad, to this. And if you think there's too much mid-range cut out of that, just take out the exciter and just leave the EQ, and or you can go into your exciter and kind of dial back. Wait. So I can go in and make it sound as good as I want it to sound. I got some really old Behringer Truth 2031 monitors. I got a KRK subwoofer, and I'm able to make stuff sound good. When I'm doing studio work, if I have a Fiverr client that I need to do some work for, no EQ curves when I'm mixing. Now, when I finally do the final mix, I may do a test and add this EQ curve in there just to see how it sounds. So this is going to be my mainstream simulator. So if I'm adding too much bass, this is going to tell me, because most likely EQs are going to be shaped in this way roughly. Now, when I send it to the client, they're not going to get this EQ curve. They're going to get all the information flat, and it's going to sound good that way. That way they can do their tweaking or whatever. And just so you know, this is why your sound library, your software library doesn't sound as good as your keyboard, because the keyboards, they set the shape of their sound, whereas software libraries, you have to do it. So anybody that tells you that software sounds so good that I don't have to do any tweaking are lying. You need to tweak. You need to tweak. So you need to tweak it. You need to tweak your sound, not you need to tweak, Nancy Reagan said, say no to drugs. So with that, thank you very much. More to come from pianodownloads.com.